It was a regular Thursday morning for Jason Edwards, the CEO of one of the most successful tech companies in the world. The streets of New York City were buzzing with the usual chaos, people rushing to work, taxis honking, the buzz of everyday life. But Jason was different. He had been running the company for over a decade now, and the streets were just part of his routine. His mind was consumed by quarterly reports, upcoming mergers, and the next big move in the market. It wasn't until he stepped out of the cab and onto the sidewalk that something unusual caught his eye. A boy. Jason was a man who prided himself on seeing the big picture, on noticing details others missed. But this was different. As he walked past the boy standing on the corner, Jason's steps faltered. He couldn't explain it at first, but the boy's presence felt almost familiar. He had messy brown hair, a tattered hoodie, and an innocent look on his face. But it was more than just the boy's appearance that struck Jason. It was the way he stood, the way his face seemed to mirror Jason's own. Jason stopped in his tracks, staring at the child in disbelief. The boy's features, the way his mouth curved into a half smile, even the intensity of his eyes, it was all too familiar. For a brief second, Jason thought he was imagining things. After all, New York was filled with people, but how could a random kid resemble him so much? He took a few steps closer, unable to tear his gaze away. The boy hadn't noticed him at first, but when their eyes met, a strange tension filled the air. The boy looked up at him almost as if he recognized him, though there was no reason why he should. Jason's heart began to race. "Hey, kid," Jason called out, his voice shaky with uncertainty. You look like me." The boy paused for a moment, his face expressionless at first. He looked at Jason and then shrugged, as though it was the most normal thing in the world. "Do I?" the boy replied, almost casually. "People say I look like my dad." Jason's heart skipped a beat. He froze for a second, processing what the boy had just said. "Your dad?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. There was a strange tightness in his chest, a sudden sense of panic rising. "Yeah," the boy continued, scratching the back of his head. "I don't know him, though. My mom says he left." Jason's mind started to race, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place, but he couldn't yet fully comprehend the truth. He was barely able to catch his breath as a sudden wave of realization hit him. This couldn't be happening. This boy, looked exactly like him, but he was telling him that he didn't know his father. What if? No, it couldn't be, could it? "What's your name?" Jason managed to ask, his voice shaking. "Ethan," the boy replied, with a slight smile. Jason felt his legs go weak. The name hit him hard. Ethan, he couldn't explain it, but everything about this encounter seemed too surreal. He thought back to years ago, to a night, a mistake, one that he had long buried in his past, a one-night stand with a woman he barely remembered. He had never thought about it since, convinced it was just a fleeting, insignificant event, but now here was this boy standing in front of him, claiming to be the son of someone he had forgotten about. Jason struggled to breathe, his thoughts racing. "Ethan," Jason repeated, trying to stay calm. "Where do you live? Who's your mom?" Ethan pointed down the street, a gesture that seemed innocent enough, but to Jason it was the final clue. "That way," Ethan said. "My mom's inside." Jason hesitated for a moment. His heart was pounding in his chest as the possibility began to settle in. Could this really be his son? Could this boy standing before him be the product of a single night of recklessness, a night he had long forgotten? Without saying another word, Jason started to follow the boy. His thoughts were a blur, his mind struggling to catch up with the flood of emotions that had suddenly consumed him. He wasn't sure why he was following the boy, but he couldn't ignore the feeling in his gut, the feeling that he had to know the truth. Jason followed Ethan through the crowded streets, his mind in overdrive, heart pounding in his chest. Every step felt heavier than the last. He wasn't sure what he was expecting, but deep down, he knew that everything was about to change. Ethan led him to a rundown apartment building on the corner of 5th and Main, the kind of building that had seen better days, its bricks chipped and weathered, windows cracked. It wasn't the kind of place Jason would have ever imagined for his child to live. His life had always been filled with luxury and comfort. How could a kid who looked exactly like him be living in a place like this? They walked up the narrow stairs, and Jason's heart rate quickened with every step. Ethan paused in front of door 3B, and without a word he knocked. After a few moments, the door creaked open, and a woman appeared. She looked familiar, though Jason couldn't immediately place her. She was in her late 30s, with tired eyes that had seen a lifetime of struggle. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice cautious. Jason opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat. His eyes flickered to Ethan, standing beside him, then back to the woman. Finally, he found his voice. "Is Ethan your son?" Jason asked, his voice shaky with the weight of what was happening. The woman's expression changed immediately. A flicker of recognition crossed her face, but it was gone in an instant. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she studied him closely, her brow furrowing. "Yes," she said, finally. "He is." Jason's heart was racing, and he could feel his palms sweating. He was standing there, looking at the woman who had been part of his past, and yet he couldn't remember her name. He had no idea what to say next. "Who are you?" the woman asked, a bit more cautiously now. Jason swallowed hard. He took a deep breath, the reality of what was happening finally sinking in. "I think I'm his father," Jason said quietly. "I think I'm Ethan's father." The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt deafening. The woman looked at him with wide eyes, as if she couldn't quite believe what he was saying. Then slowly, she stepped back and gestured for them to come inside. "Come in," she said softly. "We need to talk." The truth hit Jason like a freight train. Everything from that one night, buried in the past, came rushing back. He could no longer deny it. Ethan, this boy who looked so much like him, was his son. He had a child, and for all these years, he had never known. The weight of the revelation was too much for him to comprehend in that moment. The guilt, the regret, the emotions that came crashing over him, it was all too much. As Jason stepped inside the apartment, he realized that his life had just changed forever. Everything he thought he knew about himself, his future, and his past was suddenly turned upside down. This was his son, and now he had to decide what came next. What would you do if you found out you had a child you didn't know about? How would you handle this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more dramatic, real-life stories.